evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the All Candidates Forum, sponsored by the Boundary Country Regional Chamber of Commerce. I am Dean Ingen, President of the Chamber, and I'm honored to be your host and mediator for tonight's debate. Now before we start, this is the format of tonight's forum. Each candidate will be given 4 minutes to make an opening statement. The order of these statements have been determined in advance by draw. Candidates will be asked not to interrupt other candidates' opening statements or closing statements. During the Q&A period, questions will be received from the floor in either written or verbal. The moderator will have the responsibility of ensuring questions are directed to the appropriate candidate to ensure balance. Media will have 10 minutes before the Q&A period. Questions from the floor will be limited to 1 per person, 2 minutes to ask questions, unless everyone has an opportunity and there is still time, to ensure as wide as participation as possible. Answers to questions are limited to 2 minutes to ensure as wide a discussion as possible. Each candidate will receive 3 rebuttal cards that can be used during the question and answer period. The moderator will rule out of order any questions deemed inappropriate, offensive, and derogatory, or that would seem to attack the integrity of the candidates or bring the Chamber's reputation into disrespect. Candidates will have 3 minutes for closing statements. The order will be reversed of opening statements. Questions from the microphone. Please identify yourself before speaking. Ask 1 question. Please sit down once question is answered, or return to the end of the line to ask another question. So we will introduce our candidates tonight in alphabetical order. Starting right here, Dr. Peter Entwistle, an independent. Then we have Linda Larson for the Liberal Party, and we have Colleen Ross for the NDP. The Green Party's Lonnie Lathers could not be with us at this time, so we'll play it by ear as it comes. So we've already drawn, and the order of tonight's opening statements will be Linda, Colleen, then Peter. So at this time, I would ask Linda Larson to take the podium and speak.
Thank you. If you don't mind, I'll remain seated so that we don't have to keep moving the microphones up and down. All right, thank you. And thank you to Peter for killing the insect that was crawling across the microphone. My name is Linda Larson, and I have had the privilege of representing this community in Victoria for the past 4 years. You have a very unique cultural history here that your museum and your art gallery showcase very well. I have attended your community events, met with your numerous organizations, and supported your local government initiatives. Your not-for-profit organizations have shared over $900,000 in lottery grants in the last few years. Grand Forks Secondary here has received over $600,000 in capital funding for improvement in dust collection and new flooring. Your school board set an example years ago for the rest of the province in developing a 4-day week for your students that maximize their access to a great education while managing declining enrollment. We have supported hospice with funding for three more beds, the Boundary Women's Transition House with $1 million for a new building, and Boundary Family and Individual Services Society with funds for many new programs. You have good medical facilities here, including mental health services. Grand Forks and District are fortunate to have some major employers like Roxel and Interfor, as well as numerous medium and small businesses who are benefit from this government's low business tax structure and the many supports available. Agriculture and ranching are also alive and well. This community is growing and progressive. Your streets are not lined with unemployed, homeless, and people living in poverty. All rural communities struggle with supports for those less fortunate. But Grand Forks organizations like Whispers of Hope, BETS, and BEFAS have improved the lives of many and continue to do so with the help from community volunteers, numerous social programs, and funding from the province. I look forward to hearing your questions and concerns. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Linda. And now next is Colleen Ross from the NDP.
I like to stand up and talk. It's great to be home. I've been traveling throughout this vast riding, visiting communities from Christina Lake through to Princeton, Tulameen, Caledon, Okanagan Falls, wonderful little village of Headley, and everywhere in between, including many manufactured home parks. But I chose to move to Grand Forks several years ago because of the friendly people who I'd met here, because of the beautiful sunshine, the water, and the rich soil. Shortly after I moved here, and I bought a small farm on Harding Mountain Road, and quickly got farm status, because you can grow great food here. I decided that because of the years of experience I have in governance, that I wanted to get involved. I wanted to give back to my community because that's what I do. So I ran for city council, and I was so honored that you trusted me and you voted me onto council, and it's been such a privilege. But as I've lived in this community, I became increasingly concerned about our homelessness situation here, about mental health and addictions, about the people living in our streets and along our riverbanks, about empty needles that are being picked up, that our homeless shelter is overfull and our bed nights are far too high. Our food bank is overused, and as is our soup kitchen. And I so appreciate the volunteers in this community. I'm overwhelmed by the generosity and love of the people in this community that give and give and give. But we can do better. I'm horrified at the environmental degradation that we have, not only here around Grand Forks, but throughout the boundaries of Milcomead, and indeed across British Columbia. I'm concerned about you. I'm concerned about your children. I'm concerned about your grandkids. We can't afford another 16 years of Christy Clark. We hear about jobs, jobs, jobs. Do you know that we've lost 30,000 jobs in the forestry industry alone, and over 100 mills? And the increase in raw log exports goes up and up. And we don't have a softwood lumber agreement. I'm concerned about that. I'm concerned about education and how schools have been squeezed, teachers have been squeezed, parents have been squeezed, and children have missed out, especially children with special needs, because the teachers to support them just aren't there. They're overwhelmed. Doctors are overwhelmed, nurses are overwhelmed, caregivers are overwhelmed. Our seniors aren't appropriately cared for. I'm appalled, and it hurts me, and I need to do something about it. My background is in activism. I've been an activist all my life. I'm not a politician, I'm a farmer. And I saw how farmers were betrayed, and I'm seeing how workers are betrayed, children are betrayed, parents are betrayed. 16 years is enough. Christy Clark told us in her campaign speech that she's just getting started. 16 years? Look at her record. We have Site C Dam, a dam we don't need, that's going to put you, your kids, and your grandkids in at least $9 billion of debt. And they're going to flood 1,000 hectares of prime agricultural land. Only 3% of our land in BC is cultivatable, and they're going to flood it. We don't need it. They failed to diversify our economy. We can do better. We have ideas. We are lagging behind not only the rest of Canada, but the rest of the world. I'm looking forward to your questions, and I'm looking forward to you supporting me on May 9th. We can do this together. We can make a better BC. We can do it together. It's a social movement, it's a revolution, and it's a resistance. I'm looking forward to hearing from you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Colleen. Now Peter for the Independent. We didn't need that part.
So, I think that was another insight. So, thank you to Chambers of Commerce, and thank you all for giving up your evening to listen to us. And thank you, Kelly. I think you described a lot of what's been going on in our province for the past few years, and things really aren't right. And I'm not a politician, and you'll hear me say that a lot tonight. I have no party organisation, and I have no big backers. I'm a family doctor. I provide care in the community for the past 10 years in Oliver, and I've been a physician for 30 years. And standing here really wasn't what I expected to be doing tonight. Just a few weeks ago, I was sat, like you, listening to the politicians in OK Falls. But what I heard at that meeting, and what I see around me in the communities that I work, and what I know to be true, made me realise that we're not well served in rural areas by the current party politics. For far too long, we've been told what's good for us, what to do by the main parties with their urban power base and their urban priorities. And I'm not a politician. I don't have preformed scripted answers in a binder before me, telling me what to think and what to say. It's clear our communities can be and should be better represented. I'm not a politician. I'm not in a party that takes millions of dollars of contributions. I'm not tied to a low mainland party, nor am I bound by party discipline to always vote for the party rather than in my constituency's best interests. Our communities need an independent advocate to address issues like the removal of hospital beds in Oliver. The candidates haven't spoken about that. Yet, in Oliver, we're losing 25% of our beds. It can be Grand Forks next. The school closure in Osoyoos was averted not by our MLA. The unfair two-tier electricity rate system, that's a tax on living in rural areas, subsidising the people who live in cities. It's not right. For the sake of all of our communities, we need an MLA who cares first for the community and not for the party. Judge youth candidates by their actions and not by their scripted promises. So, once again, I'm not a politician. I'm not running in this election to make a point, although surely the point that our communities need to be better represented has to be made, and I'm running to win. So we need an independent MLA who always listens and is free to advocate. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. And at this time, we will move forward to the media questions. We'll bring Kathleen Saylor up to ask questions. We'd like to thank Larson Grand Forks TV for coming here and providing this for other residents. Kathleen.
Hi there. Thank you all for coming out tonight. My name is Kathleen Saylors. I'm a reporter at the Grand Forks Gazette. My first question for you tonight is you're facing a community where there are a lot of challenges to live in rural areas. One of those challenges is, of course, bringing in and attracting youth and keeping them here. So my question for you is, specifically, what do you plan to do to bring youth to Grand Forks and keep the youth we have?
And that's to whom? To everyone? Colleen?
Might as well go first. Youth is my passion and it's my heart, and as I've rolled out my campaign, I particularly have reached out to youth. And you know, I understand how this is, it's very difficult. I have 3 children between the ages of 25 and 32, and they've chosen to go elsewhere because they have more security somewhere else. But there are so many youth in this town, and I love the fact that this town is so multi-age and there's so many young people here, and I'm meeting more people throughout the Boundary region and in the Okanagan and the Similkameen valleys who are wanting to stay where they live because they've chosen to be there. The Liberals have failed to diversify our economy, and the BC Liberals won't do that. We are going to diversify our economy, including with local renewable energy plans, building 114 affordable co-op houses, that will bring in 96,000 new jobs, direct and indirect jobs, guaranteed using BC grown, BC harvested, BC manufactured wood products that are engineered. We have the fiber optics and encouraging young people who can now move into our area because we have that high speed fiber optics, and encouraging that. Working with colleges, universities, community colleges, bringing back the education tuition for adults who want to be retrained, doing business enhancement investment for young people who want to start their own businesses, not just after they've been unemployed and can't get a job at the local fast food outlet, but young people who are brilliant, and there are many brilliant young people in our communities, including artists and musicians who want to start their own businesses, and giving them the support they need when they need it with grants. And so we have many plans. We embrace youth, and often rural BC is forgotten, and it won't be forgotten anymore. I'm an advocate, and I don't do what the party says. We work together as a caucus and as a team, and I know John Horgan is passionate about youth, as is many of the MLAs.
Linda?
Thank you. Communities, more than anything else, need a wide variety of things to make them healthy. One of them, obviously, is jobs. If you're going to have families here, you need jobs for their parents. I did a job search today just to take a look and see what was available in Grand Forks. And there was actually a number of jobs that we don't have people for at the moment. Certainly the city of Grand Forks is looking for people, as well as Roxel and Interfor and Unifab, as well as teachers and recreational therapists and early childhood accountants, clerks. There are jobs available here. Sometimes it's difficult to find the right people for them, but those jobs do bring in families, and those children become part of your community. And your high school here does a wonderful job of providing them with access as they mature out of school to skills training. And hopefully they'll come back. It's the same all over the province. There is no one factor that determines whether children are going to stay in your community as they age out. But certainly you do have some major employers here. You have good jobs here. And I think that the school system and the skills training is doing an excellent job. So that in itself will keep more of the kids here.
Thank you, Linda. Now, Peter.
Thank you. So, I think any community or people coming to a community need hope. They need the hope that the community... Speak up. They need the hope that the community is going to be stable, that it's vibrant. And for that we need affordable homes, we need high quality jobs, and a sense that that's going to continue. Or to achieve those aims, then we need a change in government policy that isn't aimed at pushing everything towards the lower mainland. One way of looking at this is education, where teachers are going to be drained as more teachers need to go down to the cities. They're going to be drained from our communities. We need to have rural protocols and guidelines to go push and stop things from moving into the cities from the rural areas. One suggestion that is done in Australia is by improving health and putting extra money into health in rural areas. For $1 spent in health, it brings $10 into the community. And so what we need is good, high-quality jobs, affordable housing, and hope. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. And now we'll have another question from the media. I will direct it to one candidate, please.
This is for Colleen Ross. How will you revitalize our forest industry and make BC a world leader in engineering wood after President Trump's 20% lumber tariff? Thank you.
Thank you, that's a great question. I've been concerned about the lack of movement on the SLA, Softwood Lumber Agreement, for almost 2 years now, and even spoke about it at City Council. I spoke to people at Interfor as well, and Christy Clark didn't go to Washington to negotiate a Softwood Lumber Agreement, and she didn't go to Ottawa to negotiate a Softwood Lumber Agreement. You see what's happened. And when the elections were happening in the States, we were all pretty concerned about the SLA, and if it was going to be negotiated, it would have been better to negotiate it with Obama than it is to negotiate it with Trump. But Christy Clark said, well, Trump's a builder, so it might be better negotiating with Trump because he builds stuff. But we all know Trump's idea around trade. So what we're going to do is, I've recently visited a company called Structurelam, and it's a wonderful model on using second grade wood, and sometimes not second grade wood, but some of the wood they use is mountain pine beetle wood. And they're doing a great job, and they're building major structures with this Structurelam material. And we want to do more value added, and even working with the mills that are here throughout the boundaries in Milkameen and indeed across BC to help them to start to diversify into value added. We need to do more of that here. Build BC, grow BC, cut BC, and manufacture in BC. And actually working with universities and engineers so that the materials that we're building are actually engineered correctly and they are actually suitable for export. So we have really great ideas about how to revitalize the forest industry and protect the jobs that are there. We have been really supportive of the mills. Mills are an important part of our infrastructure, and we can't afford them to lose. We can't afford to lose any more mills. We need those jobs. So we want to diversify and use our forests more wisely and more carefully because we're running out of trees as well.
Hi there. This question is for Linda Larson. In Medicine Hat, Alberta, it was recently announced that the city has reached functional zero for homelessness. That means that within 10 days of a homeless person being identified or a person experiencing homelessness, they are connected with the services they need to get help. My question is, what is your party's plan to reduce homelessness, especially in rural areas?
So I didn't hear you very well, but I'm just going to see if I can repeat it. So
would you like me to repeat the question?
It's all right, I think I got it. So in Medicine Hat, there is a 10-day turnaround on somebody becoming homeless? I mean... When someone becomes homeless, they find the right resources within 10 days. Okay, so in other words, if they go somewhere for services within 10 days, they're taken care of? Is that what you're... Okay, thank you. I haven't seen the model specifically, but I know that we do a tremendous amount of work, and here in this community, the organizations here are very quick to help people who need it, as quickly, like Whispers of Hope and Bets and Beavis are all there to offer services that are funded by government to help people who are in an unfortunate circumstance that they have no control of. Housing is another issue, which is one that is being dealt with all over the province, and building affordable housing is something that every community is attempting to do. That's something that usually comes from within a community, through a society. Money is there from BC Housing to do that, to build those structures. And we hope that people will apply for the funding and do that. But as far as I'm aware, here in this community, there are services that step up very, very quickly to help anybody who all of a sudden finds themselves in some sort of distress.
Thank you, Linda. Now another question from media.
Me again. My next question is, I guess, directed to Dr. Peter Entwistle. Forestry is a critical industry, especially here in Grand Forks. We have a mill here that employs many, many people. And yet the environment continues to be an ongoing concern. So my question for you is, how will you ensure that we protect our environment while also protecting jobs?
Thank you. So, clearly the environment's important. From my point of view, as someone who works in health, if we don't have a good environment, then that affects all our well-being. And when you look at health, I tend to look at health as holistically. And the things that we need for good health are good jobs and and good place to live, and good home and a good environment. Specifically in answer to your question, then clearly it's always a compromise between having good and efficient and effective and cost-efficient forestry, and there's modern techniques where that can be done, and you can use conservation and protect the environment. At the end of the day, yes, everything's always a compromise. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. At this time, we will move forward to questions from the floor. I do have some written-in questions that I will ask the candidates, but if anyone would like to come up and ask a question, please come up to the mic. You will give your name and you will address which candidate you would like to speak to. I've got a question here that I will ask first, and then we'll move on to people from the floor. This question is a write-in, and it goes to Colleen Ross. The topic is childcare. $10 a day plan. How do you see NDP implementing addressing low wages for childcare workers? How will you keep them in the field? It's from Louise Heck. Colleen.
How will we keep childcare workers in the field?
Yes, with the $10 a day plan.
Allowing young parents to get back to work is a way of creating tax revenue, and it does cost out. We will have childcare providers that are trained as early childcare specialists, and will be starting with 0 to 2 years of age, and then eventually graduated up to kindergarten age for childcare. $10 a day childcare has been proven successful in other jurisdictions, not only across Canada but around the world, and even free childcare in some countries. It gets parents back to work, and it costs out. When parents are working, it creates tax revenue. Tax revenue goes to the government and helps to pay for that. It puts people back to work. A lot of parents I've spoken to can't afford to go back to work because they simply can't afford daycare. They can't afford to start their own businesses because they can't afford daycare. They need that support. It's not only for people who want to go back to work, but it's also for people who want to go back to school to increase their education so they can get a better job. Or for young people who want to start their own businesses and need a hand for 2 or 3 or 5 days a week with their kids while they get on their feet, starting their own businesses. And small businesses are the backbone of rural BC. It not only puts people to work as business owners, but small businesses employ people, which creates tax revenue. $10 a day childcare makes it possible for this to happen, and it costs out. Within the first 2 years, we will actually be in a surplus of $112 million.
Thank you, Colleen. Before we go to the floor, let me remind you that absolutely no derogatory marks will be accepted. You will be asked to leave if you're abusive to any of the candidates. Does everyone understand that? Thank you very much. We will start there, and then we'll move to you. Please, your name and the candidate.
Hi, my name is Leora Gesser, and this is a question for Colleen. As an individual and a party member, what role do you feel the arts plays in our society and specifically in our rural community? Thank you.
Thank you, Leora. That's a great question. My children are artists, they're musicians, and my daughter is an accomplished artist who's sold her first piece of art when she was about 16. And I don't want to live in a community that doesn't value the arts, whether that be music, drama, dance, or the visual arts, like we have a gallery too. I celebrate the arts, and actually, arts is in our platform to support the arts, to bring arts back into BC, to bring the dramatic arts back into BC. I would like to see, I do support it. It's an important part of my life. And I don't know if anybody reads books like by Che Guevara or by people who've worked in movements. It's a sense of a culture. Every culture is defined by its music and its art. When you travel, it's music and art that defines a culture, and it's food. And these are things, it's very important. It's my heart. It's great to have great jobs and to have good education and good health care, but we need to celebrate the arts. It's also healing and bringing arts into the schools, and bringing arts into senior centers. Unfortunately, we can't do that because we don't have enough care providers in our senior centers. And I've actually spoken to care providers who are specialized in arts therapy, and they're not able to practice that because they're too busy doing just the minimum they can to care for their seniors. So I think throughout society at every level, it's really important that we have the arts, and it is in our platform, it's an important part, and we need to protect it. In rural BC, as I travel through all these little towns, there's galleries, and there's artists, and there's potters, and there's musicians, and it's like it's the heartbeat of the community. So, yeah, I think arts are really important.
Thank you.
Thank you, Polly. Please introduce yourself and pick a candidate to ask a question.
Hello, I'm Betty Ann Mackay, and I'm sitting quite close to the front, and my question is to everyone, including the people asking questions. Would you please speak up, because I can't hear what's going on. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll keep that in mind. Gentlemen.
Yes, hello, my name is Brody Peterson. I have a question for Linda Larson. Linda, I was just wondering if you could explain why we don't have a softwood lumber agreement.
I'm sorry, why we don't have a softwood what?
I just wanted to ask you.
Because I can't.
I wanted you to explain why we do not have a softwood lumber agreement.
Oh, agreement? Okay, thank you. The current agreement, as you know, expired not quite 2 years ago, and we are negotiating and have been from day one. You realize, I'm sure, that the softwood lumber negotiation is between the federal government and the United States. And they have been at the table constantly, and we have David Emerson appointed to represent BC's interests in the negotiations, but this is something that is very difficult, as you all know right now, with Mr. Trump, who has decided that any trade with anybody around the world is not something he's in favor of at the moment. I have no doubt that we are going to get a deal. We've done this many times before over the years, as you know, and this government has negotiated and been able to reach a softwood lumber agreement deal every single time. But it is the federal government and the US government at the table, and we are represented by Mr. Emerson.
Thank you. And I think we have okay, Colleen, go ahead.
I'd just like you to know that David Emerson is an unelected trade envoy, and he only visited Washington a month ago, a year and a half after the agreement expired. And Christy Clark hasn't done anything about it. To say that it's in the purview of the national government is not true. It is part of our responsibility as a province representing you that we do something about it, because our jobs are at risk. And we have known about this for 2 years. To say that, oh, you know, he's looking after it is just not good enough. We should have done something about it. I'm appalled. And what's happening now is we are exporting more raw logs, not only offshore, but over the 49th parallel. We're now exporting raw logs to mills in the United States, including Washington, by mills that are owned. We have mills here that are owned by the same companies that are owned in the USA, and they're cutting those mills in the States, not here. And that's not good enough. It's terrifying. And it's not good enough to say, oh, well, you know, we're sending this unelected envoy to Washington to deal with it 18 months after it expired. Is appalling. And it's abdicating responsibility, because I think the softwood lumber agreement was too much work, but it's a lot easier to roll those raw logs onto a barge and send them offshore at your expense. I'm sorry, Brody. I'm concerned about your job. We're here for you, and within 30 days, John Burger is going to Washington.
Thank you, Colleen. And now we'll ask this gentleman to ask a question, please.
My name is John Mackay from Grand Forks, and I'd like to address this question to Linda Larson. We are missing out on a tremendous amount of money by not being part of the Columbia Basin Trust. Now, would you or your government support reopening discussions and negotiations with the Columbia Basin Trust for the Kettle and Granby rivers? which are part of the basin. Yet they're not represented there, and why Fernie?
I agree with you 100%. I don't know why. I wasn't in government when this original agreement was developed with the Columbia Basin Trust. I think you should have been a part of it from day one. I have discussed this with some of your regional directors and your elected officials here, and it is something, yes, that I will pursue.
There's a lot of money involved.
Thank you. And then we'll have lady on the corner there.
Thank you. Grace McGregor, Regional District Kootenay Boundary elected official for Christina Lake. The question is for Colleen, please. Some of us worked very, very hard to get a rural dividend because a lot of us know that rural BC puts a lot of money into the coffers. So we spent about 4 years. We got a rural dividend, we got a rural strategy, we have a rural council. What is the intent of the NDP with all of that hard work?
To support rural BC even more than it has already. Right now, so much money goes into Greater Victoria and the Lower Mainland, and we know that rural BC has been neglected, and we are the breadbasket of British Columbia. So, Grace, we are going to support rural BC more than we ever have before. Just last night, there was a all candidates debate in Penticton, and the Liberal candidate said that we can't do anything about tree fruits anymore, we have to focus on wines. And the entire tree fruit growers today are appalled that they're not getting that support, because fruit growers are really important to this riding. We are going to support the tree growers, we're going to support farmers, we're going to support that rural dividend, small businesses, schools, bringing more teachers in. We're going to start funding schools the way they were meant to be funded, particularly those in rural BC, and support our rural schools. So Grace, and there's actually another plan in place for infrastructure and projects, and it's focused on rural British Columbia. So you're good. You're going to be protected, and there's going to be a renewed focus on rural British Columbia.
Good evening. My name is Lori Hess, and I work for School District 51. This question is for Linda Larson, and sadly, I believe I asked it last time. For approximately 20 years now, the child poverty rate has been sitting at about 1 in 5. For lone parent families, that hits around 50%. So that's approximately 160 children around BC who are living in poverty. I know we've seen some small increases to the minimum wage, and the majority of these single parents are in paid work. I'd like to add that working in the resource sector is not necessarily a viable option for a single parent. So how the money isn't trickling down to these people. And I just wonder how the government has had lots of time to really make some changes, and we have seen really very little out of them. So what do they propose for the next term to lower our child poverty rate?
Thank you for the question. In BC, despite the fact that the statistics are as you quoted, we have made huge gains in the child poverty end of things. It is 50% less than it was 10 years ago, so we are actually making progress. Most of the programs that we've developed are targeted towards the families and the parents of those children. So, for instance, the self-employment program for single parents at home with their children and unable to get back to work. We have a program now that allows them to do that. So what we do is we pay their tuition, we pay their transportation to school, we pay their child care. We continue the payments that they may be receiving through social assistance, and we get them a job. So 4,600 single parents have applied to this program in the last year and a half. We have more than 1,000 who have gone through, who are now working and supporting their children and literally moving them out of poverty. It's no secret that this government feels that the best way to help people is to help them help themselves. And if we can help people get out of social assistance and into the workforce and supporting their own families, we feel that that's the best thing we can do for them.
Just clarify that 50% number that you gave out, that's 50% better?
Than it was 10 years ago, yes. And we have 50% less people living below that line than we had 10 years ago.
Okay,
Only one question, please. At this time, I'm going to ask this lady to come up to the microphone from this side. And then I'll ask you to this side, please, and thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, my name is Dr. Karen Bond. I have a PhD in clinical psychology. I'm a barrister and solicitor in Grand Forks, and I've been a lawyer in the United States for 35 years. I've lived in Grand Forks for 13 years. Colleen, this question's for you. Can you tell me where you are, please?
I'm over here.
Thank you, so I can direct the question at you. Everybody's been talking about jobs and free handouts. However, in Grand Forks, we've had 2 individuals open up dispensaries for medical marijuana. And while you've been on City Council has given a license to one of those dispensaries for the last 3 years. When a second person, who happened to be the daughter of the former mayor, opened up a dispensary, she was told she couldn't do it, and she was denied a business license. And then there were 2 busts in Grand Forks, and now all the people who were getting help from their pain, help for epilepsy, help for all the diseases and the conditions they were taking medical marijuana for, apparently can no longer do so. There's been no clear direction from City Council. The law's changing within a year.
Can you get to the question, please?
We are concerned about corporate GMO grow operations coming into Grand Forks. We have an opportunity for bringing in income. Can you explain what you would do to bring in income in a safe way through the medical marijuana field?
Thank you, Karen. That's a great question. I support the craft marijuana industry, and I would never deny anybody their right to receive the medication that they require, being it medicinal marijuana in various forms. Throughout this constituency, I've actually been stopping at as many dispensaries as I can to get a sense of how they operate, and I've actually met some of the owners just to look at the different models, and I had a conversation with one of the leading dispensary owners here in British Columbia last night. The City Council doesn't actually give out the licenses. That's not the job of the City Council. It's actually the job of the city. I don't know why that happened. I actually joined Teresa's co-op. I took out a membership because I wanted to support her. I wanted to encourage her. Teresa's a friend. Brian's a friend. I was appalled at what happened. I've talked to John Horgan about it. Now that they're talking about making it legal, we need to be careful about how we do that. We need to talk about it. I would like to see the craft industry go first. I want to keep it local. I'd like to keep it local and organic. There is no GMO medical marijuana. It doesn't exist. There's no GMO marijuana. But I would like to see it local. I'd like to see it organic. I like the craft industry. I think that's a good start. And I know many, many, many people in this community, seniors, children with epilepsy, dear friends with MS and cancer and sleep disorders and arthritis who rely on those products. So Karen, I'm with you. I think we need to do some work there. I'm disappointed at what happened with Teresa and Brian. And you know, you only have so much power as a city councillor, and sometimes you just bring it up, and there's not much I can do about it, but I was appalled.
Thank you, Colleen. Now we'll have 2 questions from that side of the room, please.
Christy Luke, and this is a question for Colleen. During the last 4 years of Liberals, the agriculture land reserve was greatly changed and reduced. And I'm wondering what the NDP's plan for the agricultural land reserve is at this point.
Well, in their wisdom, the NDP knew that agricultural land, God isn't making any more agricultural land. So we knew that it needed to be protected in British Columbia because we're mostly a vertical province and only 3% of our land is cultivatable. We were disappointed to see what they did to the ALR and how they cut it up and how they gutted the ALC and then stacked the board. I believe that they destroyed the ALR so they could build Site C Dam. We are going to revitalize the ALC and the ALR. It needs to be modernized for craft industries, such as the breweries and the small farms. We're seeing mega homes built on prime agricultural land and taking that land out of production, and it's driving up the cost of good land around those houses because it's becoming real estate. We see it right across BC. We see it in Kelowna and the Delta. We see it here. We see it in the Okanagan Valley. And we're seeing lots of vineyards. But I haven't heard that we're wine insecure in this country, but we can certainly be food insecure really, really quickly. And as we see things shut down in California, we need to double down, get those farmers on the land, make sure they make a viable income, protect our soil. It's all about soil. And soil is, when you lose your soil, you lose a civilization. And we cannot afford to be food insecure. We only have 3 days worth of food on a store shelf at any one time. If we have a landslide, a mudslide, we have avalanches, we cut off those trucks, we don't get our food into our grocery stores. And so I just always encourage everybody, know your farmer, know your food. We're going to revitalize the LC and the LR.
At this time, Linda Larson would like to get the chance to rebut that question.
Thank you. The BC Liberal government has added more resources to help the Agricultural Land Commission enhance its oversight of the 4 million hectares that are protected under the Agricultural Land Reserve, which is actually 32,000 more acres than there was in 2001.
Fair enough, Colleen.
Okay, so land that's in the ALR, let me be clear, it's not cultivation. It can be grazing land. It can be land that's vertical. So land around a farm, like land around my little tiny farm, is still in the ALR, and we need those buffers. There's more land in the ALR, if there is. It's not cultivatable. You can't grow vegetables or grain on vertical land or rocky soil where you're grazing cattle or sheep. We need soil. This is different, and I think this is the difference between perhaps Ms. Larson and I. I'm a farmer. I understand the importance of soil. ALR land that's not soil, you don't grow food on it. You might be able to grow a vineyard, but you can't grow food on it. They've taken soil out of the ALR, and they flooded soil. They're going to flood soil, or they think they're going to flood soil when they make Site C. That's soil. ALR land is not all cultivation. They took cultivation out of the ALR, and they're building these houses on cultivation, on soil. So they're taking soil out of the ALR, and they're putting non-cultivation land in and saying, we brought more land in. It's not food-growing land.
Hello. I'm feeling bad for Dr. Entwistle because he's been left out, so I'm going to ask him a question. So I'm Ian Mitchell. I'm from here in Grand Forks. And first I just want to say, I think I have a bit of a sense about what you're trying to do. I've looked into you a bit, and you seem like you have a lot of respect in your home community and whatnot, and I respect, like I said, what you're trying to do. I do have concerns about you as a candidate. I think this is a vital election, and we have to make the right choice for our community. So there's a couple things I would ask, but I only have time for one. So I actually messaged you about it a little bit a few days ago, and you were gracious enough to reply to part of it, but not to the whole thing. So, and it's around your plans to be stay on as a full-time position should you be elected MLA. So I just want to paraphrase the key part of your reply. You mentioned that you, because of staff shortages, and you were the chief of staff, I think, for the hospital, you worked upwards of 80 to 100 hours a week. And you had also mentioned that there were other MLAs in BC who had done this previously, who had both been a doctor and an MLA. So I guess I was just wondering, I think we need someone. There are those that would say that we haven't had the best representation, especially here in the Boundary over the last few years. So we need someone who's going to be working hard on our behalf. So what would you say to people that are concerned about that? And also if you could provide any info about those MLAs that have done this in the past. Thank you.
Thank you. So you ask how busy I am at the moment, and it sounds ridiculous to say that I've been working between 80 and 100 hours a week for the last few years, but that's the truth of it. I work as a family physician, but covering our emergency service in Oliver, it sees 20,000 patients a year, and the setup is appalling. We don't get the support from Interior Health, and it's impossible to recruit doctors to come there. I was told that if I didn't cover, then the hospital would close, and that's been the case last year when I didn't cover for 2 days. Not only have I been covering emergency though, not only have I been working as a family physician, not only was I working as the chief of staff of the hospital, I'm also the only addictions doctor in the whole riding. So between Castlegar and Hope, I'm the only doctor who does addictions. And this is the time when we're facing the fentanyl crisis. In addition to that, I work as a voluntary providing cover for hot appendix and fees, and I had to give up tonight's game. But otherwise, I did 2 games yesterday, I'm doing 1 game tomorrow, 1 game on Wednesday, providing medical cover there. And I'm also the medical doctor for the Assoris Indian Band. So yeah, I do a ridiculous amount of work. I'm giving up some of that work so that I can represent you as an MLA. I can go on, but thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Laura Savinka from the Boundary Peace Initiative and the BC Southern Interior Peace Coalition. Colleen, I'm sorry, we have to make you work, because I really think that you will be elected, so I think we need to know your answer to a few questions. I had a few, but I'm just going to give you one. What are your thoughts on establishing a standing committee to continually assess and advise all branches of government on the delivery of health care and other support systems for the physically, mentally, and financially challenged, which would include those challenged peoples who most times cannot afford the extra fees associated with many of the treatments, medications, and medical aids that can improve health and well-being.
Thank you, Laura, and thank you for the wonderful work you do in the Peace Initiative. You're a local hero, another one of our local heroes in Grand Forks. The BC NDP we're going to have a mental health and addictions ministry, because often mental health and addictions are associated, and I know we have a major fentanyl crisis in BC, and it's actually touching our lives here in Grand Forks and Christina Lake and throughout rural BC. And we're going to be dealing with that, and we're very clear on our platform how we're going to deal with that, from the front end, from where it's from the source, right through to what happens on the street with more care providers. Often people with mental health and addictions have other health problems, and they also have often are low income. We are going to make sure that those on low income and seniors are given an extra $100 a month. And we are also going to reinstate their bus passes. I've gone to committee as a witness, and I've been appalled sometimes when I go to committee, and I've heard of other people who've gone to committees. Particularly, I've heard about people who've gone to the Standing Committee on Health, where there's a lot of filibustering going on, and they haven't been able to represent themselves and speak about these issues as much as they should, because the expertise is not just around the committee table, but it's people who are here tonight, people who are working in healthcare, people who are working with people in poverty, And we will also have a poverty reduction plan, and that's something that we don't have right now in BC, is no poverty reduction plan. We are going to right away start a poverty reduction plan. And the fact that 1 in 5 children go to school hungry, and 1 in 5 children in BC, that might be better than 10 years ago, but I still think it's pretty appalling, especially when we're told that we have a 5-star credit rating. Well, too many people are falling through the cracks. And when children are aging out of care, that's another issue. At 18, we need to do something about that. And I spent today with the Sunshine Valley group, not only the caregivers, but some of the wonderful clients that were there, and they talked about that as well. So we're gonna do it with healthcare, better healthcare, fully funded, multidisciplinary approach, and look at mental health as well as addictions.
Thank you, Kelly. At this time, Linda Larson has requested to repeat the question as well.
Thank you. So there certainly are mental health challenges, there's no doubt about that, and a lot are related to addictions, and they do require more resources. The evidence indicates that if problems can be addressed in the early years of our lives, there's a greater likelihood of avoiding negative consequences later on. This year alone, 165 million is going to primarily to youth mental health needs, which includes 45 million to the Ministry of Children and Families for resources for mental health counseling and treatment of children, 12 million for 28 specialized addiction treatment beds for youth, 5 million for the BC Centre of Substance Abuse, 10 million to reduce wait lists for treatment, 65 million for the acquisition and renovation of buildings to house some of the most vulnerable. And we remain committed to the creation of 500 new substance abuse beds by the end of 2017. I believe the BC Liberal government is addressing this issue.
Thank you. Next question, please.
My name's Murray Rennie. I live in Grand Forks, and this is for Linda Larson. I read some time ago that 70%, or roughly 70% of the revenue generated in British Columbia was generated out of the 604 area code area, or the Lower Mainland, but only 30% of the BC budget was spent outside the 604 area. Is that statistic still the same? And when is the rest of the province going to get a fair share?
I'm not sure about the generation of the funds specifically. I know that in BC, certainly the resource-based industries are the foundation of our province. From a population base only, it would only seem reasonable that there's more people living at the coast than there is in the rest of BC, so therefore there's obviously going to be more money spent in the Lower Mainland. However, we had set up specifically a minister responsible for rural economic development, a rural dividend fund specifically to help rural BC because we've recognized the importance of those resource industries. And almost all of the communities across rural BC, certainly through the boundaries of Milkamy, have benefited from that rural dividend funding to help them create jobs and improve their communities. So while the population base is really out of whack, in other words, the largest majority is the coast, I don't believe that we are not taking care of rural British Columbia.
Thank you. Next question, please.
Hi, my name is Jacob Noseworthy. I'm a citizen of Grand Forks and a political science student at the University of Victoria. I'd like to direct my question to MLA Larson, please. Throughout my schooling, I've learned the importance of Indigenous people in the foundation of Canada, and many of the atrocities that First Nations and Indigenous people have occurred, such as residential schools, which has created a cycle of poverty over the years that has still affect thousands of First Nations people across the country today. In a meeting with Indigenous health people in these last 4 years, as you were MLA, you asked when the legacy of residential schools are going to burn out of First Nations people, essentially asking when First Nations people are going to get over the atrocities that were committed to them by the government and by churches during the residential school area in Canada. I'm wondering how you will represent First Nations and Indigenous people in Boundary Similkameen when you have disrespected a part of their history and the atrocities that have been committed against them. Thank you.
Thank you for your question, or for raising this. It was taken out of context. And actually, I got that particular question from Chief Clarence Louis, who told me that it takes about 7 generations before the types of after effects from the residential schools will fade out of the population. He's the one that told me that. 7 generations, all right? I had a very, very good friend who, Verge Baptiste, who wrote a book called The Red Brick School. And if you ever get hold of it, you will find that she refers to her friendship with me and the understanding that I had with her over the years as she struggled with the leftovers of the residential school system herself and her family as well. And she unfortunately passed away of kidney failure, which was quite common for those that had been through those kind of struggles. I work very, very closely with the Okanagan Nation Alliance and with the Osoyoos Indian Band, and I count Chief Clarence Louis as a friend, as he counts me as his friend, and I would never, ever disrespect what First Nations have gone through through this process, and I have worked and will continue to work alongside them to make sure nothing like that ever happens again. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next question, please.
Hi, my name is Ahmed. My question is directed at Colleen, but
Can you get closer to the mic, please?
My question is directed at Colleen, but if the other candidates have thoughts, I'd appreciate it. If you look 5 to 10 years into the future, what's your vision for agriculture in this region?
Thank you, Ahmed. Ahmed is one of our new young farmers here in the community, and I've been mentoring him and his partner Ann. It's been a joy. Thank you for that question, Ahmed. You know, this used to be one of the breadbaskets in British Columbia. We have a proud history, a proud Doukhobor history, and a settler history of growing abundant food, potatoes and grain and fruits in this valley and exporting them across Canada. And we had value added here as well. And for many of you know who struggle to farm here or who would like to farm here, it's not like that anymore. It's very, very difficult to make a living in agriculture. What I'd like to see in my life work has actually been in agriculture, advocating for farmers, for a better deal for farmers. I even traveled all the way to Hong Kong at the World Trade Organizations and got tear gas there because I was fighting for a better deal for Canadian farmers, and not just Canadian farmers, but Canadian farmers from all over the world have been impacted by the negative impact of world trade on dumping. You go to our grocery stores, we have apples from all over the world competing against apples grown in British Columbia. And talking to fruit growers in BC, and just yesterday, 2 days ago, I was working with some of the fruit growers in the Okanagan near Oliver, and some of them are just ready to give up because they can't make a living. We need to do more value added here. We need a better Buy BC program. We need a better education program. I hear sometimes, oh, we need more young farmers. Well, I'm not into setting people up for failure, because being a farmer is really hard. I've been a farmer for 35 years, but I understand how the market worked, and when you understand how the market works, you understand how to do really good marketing. So I've been trying to work with people on that, and I've done it. Actually, what brought me to Grand Forks is working with the Agricultural Society here, and I did a project called Food Security in the Boundary Region. And I work with farmers and consumers. So we need to work on that. We need more value added, and I encourage everybody here tonight, find a farmer, know your folk food, know your farmer, support farmers market, go to the Keller Valley Food Co-op. We have a major co-op here. And that's how it's going to keep farmers on the land. But we need to do more value added. We need to double down here in BC so we have food security, and that means we need farmers tomorrow.
Next question, please.
My name is Deborah and I live in Grand Forks. My question is for all of you, if you all choose to answer. A lot of people are leaving the region, and that being senior people or people who are ill, due to the cost of transportation to get to medical appointments that are in Kelowna, Vernon, Trail, Vancouver, because Interior Health does not even have an endocrinologist. So $2.2 billion has been given to the coast for rapid transportation. We don't even have a bus service here, except for a local one that you have to call 2 days before. I have spent a fortune in the last 3 years paying for the Boundary Volunteer Driver program to get to these appointments because I do not drive. What are you going to do for people so that seniors don't have to leave the area?
Thank you. We will have Peter answer that question, please.
Thank you. Well, we spoke a little bit about this on Saturday. I mean, your question actually brings up so many points. Just the broadest one is about the inequity of what happens in rural areas, and it's one of my big issues to do with the fact that if you live, we should have equal access to not just health but education and many amenities if we live in rural areas. It's not good enough just to say that just because we choose to live here. We don't all choose to live here. We have jobs, people have to be here, and we should have good access to health. Transportation is huge. Today I had a patient who is a new start methadone patient who couldn't access the methadone. She's going to overdose, and there's no way around that. It's just appalling. This happens every day, that people can't get the care that they need, and it breaks my heart. One of the things I alluded to before was about bringing health to rural communities. Money spent in rural communities, and health is one way of bringing money to rural communities because they're good, high-quality jobs, and that can be done. So it doesn't make sense for lots of people to go see the specialist. The specialist can travel here. I mean, we have things like telehealth. I mean, in Grand Forks at the moment, we're lucky as far as we have some specialist type services. But gradually over time, we're going to lose those because there's a lot more centralisation. That should be reversed. So, yes, there's so many things that need to be fixed, and I want to be arguing for them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Pardon me? It was to all. We're just running out of time.
Well, I would like to hear the other two's answer.
We have a format. Thank you very much.
You can come see us later. Yeah, I'll talk to you.
Next question, please.
Hello, my name is Spencer and I live in Grand Forks, and my question is for Ms. Linda Larson. Ms. Larson, in your opening comments, you mentioned the employment opportunities presently available in Grand Forks, at Roxall, and the City of Grand Forks, Interfor. If you look at the qualifications for each of those employers, you need a grade 12 diploma. They will not review your resume without having a grade 12 diploma. In 2015, the Liberal government of BC slashed funding for adult education in British Columbia, which has forced all colleges across the province to introduce tuition fees. So these are fees now attached to high school credits for adult learners who simply want to complete high school and gain entry to those, access to those higher paying employers. So today, if you need to complete a grade 10 math credit because you want to begin electrical apprenticeship, you need to pay for that credit. So some students, depending on how many credits you have, are looking at between $500 and $3,000 to complete high school. So my question specifically, Ms. Larson, is why would you support legislation that places an additional barrier on adult learners in BC who simply want to complete high school?
I certainly don't support making it more difficult for adults to get their grade 12 education by any means. I know it becomes more difficult in the more rural areas of British Columbia as well, depending whether or not you have classes that are available through your high school or whether you have to go to different communities.
So just to be clear, this was provincial legislation brought in across the province for learners in Victoria, in Vancouver, in Cranbrook, and now they all are mandated to pay, well not mandated, institutions now are charging tuition for high school credit. So it's not jurisdictional, it is provincial, and it was passed by the BC Liberal government in 2015. So for instance, if you're at...
yeah, I'm sorry to appear confused because I didn't miss many days, hardly any, in the legislature, and I don't remember a piece of legislation coming across the floor that specified exactly what you're saying right now. So it may have been the consequence of something else, but in those words, I did not vote for anything in those words that came across the floor of the legislature. So and I would have to find the legislation itself and see what piece it was, and if you can, I'd love to talk to you afterwards and see what it was and how it was meant to be. And if it has affected people that adversely, then I am certainly concerned about that, without a doubt. Okay?
Thank you. Next question, please.
Rosemary Phillips. I have hundreds of questions. I'm going to stick to one. Whereas most users of the BC health system are totally unaware of the actual costs of everything from MRIs to emergency beds to ICU, staffing, equipment, medications such as TPA used for heart attacks, which cost $6,000 a vial, surgeries and time, and whereas such costs are carried by BC taxpayers, and whereas an aging population is putting heavy demands upon the medical system, and whereas doctors are in short supply, especially in rural areas, and whereas nurses are in short supply, especially in rural areas, and whereas hospital beds and operating rooms in rural areas are being reduced, what are your suggestions and goals for the future of the BC health system, which is presently broken and needs fixing? Thank you.
Peter, please.
Thank you, Rosemary. You're right, the healthcare system is completely broken. I've been working in it for 10 years, and there's not a day that I don't... There's so many things wrong with it. We know about the waiting list, we know about people being on emergency corridors. We know about just the inequity where if you have money you can travel to Vancouver and get a shorter waiting list or to see the specialists. But locally, there's so many services that aren't available. And to fix it, someone has to take responsibility. So the great example for me, and that is the reason why I'm running, is our hospital in Oliver. The actual physical beds are being reduced by 25%, but no one takes responsibility for that. They say it's not happening, but the beds are moving. Covering emergency, no one takes responsibility. If you ask Interior Health, then they say it's the doctor's responsibility, and same in Ashcroft. If you ask Linda, she'll say it's Interior Health's responsibility. No one will take responsibility for providing the service. Everything isn't geared to looking after patients. Everything is geared to looking after the healthcare professionals. Both Linda and Colleen, when asked about how they're going to change things, they say, we'll talk to the doctors' union, we'll talk to the nurses' union. They're all about giving services to what's best for the people who work in the service. And that's just true. So, in terms of fixing the service, first, let's take responsibility. After that, we can all decide what it is we want from a healthcare service, and that isn't just going to be medicines. We primarily need care, and that care is people. We need to invest in our people and to provide good, high-quality care. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. And now we'll allow Colleen, I'm very sorry, we'll allow Linda Larson to repeat that.
Yes, the list of things that you read off, there's no argument with that whatsoever. However, we do have a healthcare system that works when you need it. And most of us, I've experienced that myself. I've got a husband that dropped with a brain tumor a year ago, and he's walking around 100% today. That's our healthcare system that saved his life. I have a grandson who's a type 1 diabetic who goes to a diabetic clinic on a regular basis every month and is well taken care of. But you're right, there are lots of shortages and discrepancies in almost every area. The Select Standing Committee on Health, which I chaired, made 59 recommendations to the government, and I have every confidence that they will be addressed. And they touch on every single one of those topics that you mentioned. And someone earlier had said something about getting transported to appointments. There are recommendations in here about how to deal with rural to city health discussions through everything from a video conferencing, different ways that we can do that. But we are trying, and we have these recommendations, which I fully believe will be acted on, and many of them are already, that will improve all of those things that you've mentioned.
Thank you, Linda. And now we'll have Peter rebut that as well.
So it's difficult to believe that a BC Liberal government would bring in recommendations when for the last year we've been facing the fentanyl crisis that is killing 3 British Columbians every day and has done so little. And yet now, just before the election, you say you're going to do so much. It's just not credible.
I couldn't sit still, so I'm going to give an option to ask one more question. There's been a lot of talk, and just now Dr. Entwistle was touching on the fentanyl crisis. We've been talking about mental health and homelessness, and these are issues that have been very close to my heart, both personally and professionally, for my whole adult life. The Medicine Hat program is called Housing First. It's Google it. It's a good program. So I just wanted to ask Colleen in terms of the other thing I would say, is that there certainly is homelessness in this community. It would be a big surprise to the people who find themselves homelessness to hear there's no homelessness here. So, having said that, in all seriousness though, Colleen, can you describe sort of what you see as in terms of NDP policy, but also how you would work with our community to work with to make the links and look after the folks that end up homeless and accessing mental health services.
Thank you, Ian. Yeah, mental health and addictions is something that's been a part of my life through family members and loved ones. And one of the things I've enjoyed doing on council is talking about how we can reach out more to people who are homeless in this community, and indeed affordable housing and housing that is affordable. And we've done a lot of workshops and had a lot of really good conversations about it. And even talking about, and we are in the process of doing it, even changing our bylaws so that we can accommodate smaller homes on property. And I would even encourage, cities to work around putting affordable housing on land that is owned by the city, so we can get people into homes that is affordable. I think that I like the approach of the grassroots approach to governance and a horizontal approach to leadership, where we all respect each other, we respect the expertise that's in the room. I think what we need to do, and our job as MLAs, is to actually listen to our communities, to listen to your needs, to take advice, and to advocate for you at the higher level to make sure your needs are being met. And because I worked at the international and the national level, I really understand very, very clearly how decisions that are made at a very high level impact the grassroots. So when you're busy working, earning a living, struggling to feed your family, dealing with mental health and addictions, decisions are being made that actually could betray you. And you have my promise I will never betray you, because I know what it's like to be betrayed. As a farmer, where my livelihood's been traded away, and currently that's happening in Canada again, and happening in BC again. It happened with the softwood lumber agreement. I think that's a betrayal. So I believe our job is not to betray you, is to work with you, to hear you, and to advocate for you. It's a bottom-up approach instead of the top-down approach, and never to abdicate responsibility and say, well, I had no control over that. We have control over it. We are the government, and we need to advocate for you.
Thank you. Due to the numerous write-in responses to housing and affordability and such, we will allow both other candidates to respond to that. We have numerous write-ins, so it'll kill two birds with one stone. So please, you can go first, Linda, and then Peter. Yes. You can go first, Linda. Or Peter, whoever.
Yeah, I was thinking Peter.
Peter, feel free.
So, Linda's just going to check. Colleen was talking about local responses, and for sure there should be local responses for housing. But the whole price of housing, the pricing structure, that has to be both federal and provincially led. At the moment we look at housing as both somewhere to live, like a home, but also many people look at it as an investment. And we have to take the two apart. And housing should simply be a place to live, a place of security. That's part of a holistic approach to health. So capital gains would have to go up, and people shouldn't be able to speculate on housing. I'm sorry, I forgot the second part of the question.
It was housing in general.
So, make housing cheaper would be what I would say. Make it affordable.
Thank you. Linda, please.
Yeah, the biggest way to improve housing affordability is to increase the supply. So it's a supply and demand issue. And we've invested huge amounts of money in British Columbia to do just that. $920 million is budgeted to support the creation of 5,300 new units of affordable housing across BC. 42,000, it'll help 42,000 people enter the market for the very first time this year. And there's a newly built home exemption to the property transfer tax. There's all kinds of things out there, but it is supply and demand. So we do need more units. We are building them as, we've done more building in British Columbia than any other province in the country when it comes to building affordable units, and we will continue to do that.
Thank you. Next question, please.
My name is Murray Rennie again, and I'm an inquirer, and this would be for Linda Larson. I just read in our local newspaper 2 issues ago about the cost of education for universities. And during the past, and I can't remember the number of years, the tuition has gone up 220%. And one of the other problems that they have is the large number of foreign students that they bring into the country. And I can understand because they paid 2 or 3 times as much for tuition. But it was the Canadian taxpayers that built the universities. And they're bleeding, the Canadian students are being excluded so that the universities can balance their books without having to be tapped in by the provincial funding. Are you going to do anything about lowering the tuitions and donating a bit more money to the universities, as all the jobs that were advertised for 2 months before the election date?
Very good.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the question.
What was your question? Are you going to donate money to universities?
Are you going to donate money to the universities to lower the tuitions for Canadian
Thank you.
citizens?
I just didn't catch the first part of your question.
As opposed to giving over the former students the priority over Canadians. A friend of mine's daughter had a 96% average when she finished university with medical and did qualify for university because of foreign students?
I'm not going to, I do not believe that our students are not able to get seats because there's foreign students in them. We have increased the number of seats in university hugely in many, many areas over the past few years. And I have not heard, other than you for the very first time, telling me that a specific student did not get a seat because there was a foreign student in it. So I cannot qualify what you're saying there at all. It's not something that I have heard before or that has been brought to my attention. I would have assumed, had that been general practice, that I would have heard about it. And certainly government would have heard about it a lot. I understand it is expensive to go to university. I know that in the medical field, for instance, we do ask new doctors coming out if they'd like to come out into the rural parts of British Columbia. We do have a loan forgiveness program. We have a higher level of payment for them depending on the rural area that they're in to encourage that. And we do an open book now, which has saved students millions of dollars. In other words, they can get their textbooks online. They no longer have to purchase them. Yes, education is expensive, but the foreign student one, I'm sorry, I cannot comment on that.
Thank you. Next question, please. As we are running out of time, there will be no more questions after the ones on the floor are asked.
Hi, my name is Guy Dubo. I'm a local contractor. I do mainly renovations. Okay, last year you were talking about housing, affordable housing, supply and demand. Okay, last year, in August, I applied for a new building permit for one of the lots that I own here in town. And I was handed this beautiful little pamphlet that said that I have to pay $475 to apply to get a test, see if I'm capable of building a home. Okay, I passed the test. I'm building a home. I also have multiple properties. But then I was handed this other beautiful little bulletin that says here that I cannot do anything for 18 months with this home. I cannot do anything for another 3 years after this home. And the one after that is 5 years. Supply and demand. Why are we regulating what I do with my properties to this extent of time? Why are you regulating when I sell or build on my properties? Like, this is a long time for 3 homes. I have more than 3 properties.
To the point, please.
Why are we regulating what I do with my properties?
Thank you. I believe that was to you, Linda.
Yes, it is to the member.
Yes, that particular new process that we are individual builders are going through right now has come about because of the claims made when the homes change hands and they are not insurable and they have not been inspected properly, and it was not meant to at all impinge on good builders. It is meant to catch those who are not building according to the proper building specs, and in the long run, somebody is going to buy that home and cannot get it insured because it's not been properly built. It was never meant to certainly target or cause you stress. I have had 2 or 3 other people who have spoken to me about this, and we have speeded up the process and tried to fix whatever their concern was. If you had contacted my office, I would have dealt with this for you.
I have contacted your office, and your help at that time said there was nothing for them or you to do.
Well, I'm sorry because I did not hear that. I was not aware of it. We had 2 other instances where we were able to help them out.
And
so,
how did you help them out? Sorry. How did you help them out? Right now, I'm not.
There was no.
We're going to move forward. Thank you.
Yeah, so I can't comment on individual.
She answered the question. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Dalton Gagne. I live in Grand Forks. My question is for Linda Larson. We recently had a brand spanking new BC ferries into our fleet. However, it was not built in Canada or British Columbia. So how does spending millions of our taxpayers' dollars out of our country, out of our province, benefit workers in BC?
Yes.
Our shipbuilders in Vancouver right now are incredibly busy with contracts. When that particular ferry contract was put out, the builders in Vancouver and on our coast did not want to do it. They had too much work. They did not have the capacity at that time to fulfill that order.
Next question, please.
My name is Lillian Yeager. Welcome to everybody. Thank you for answering the questions. I am a follower of organic and alternate medicine, and I would like to know when you are going to stop taking my choices away as to what I can put in my body, and I want to know why you feel you have the right to tell me what I can use for alternate health care, and it's not included in the health care plan. I have to pay out of my pocket. I am a really healthy person for the most part, and some say mentally incapable, but I really am a proponent of having choice, and I am tired of the Liberal government day by day taking my choices away.
Linda?
Yeah, I don't have in front of me to give you a reasonable answer on what you can and cannot access through the medical system and what you are or are not able to access. I know that we have certainly expanded what those who supply natural medicines can do. I believe now they do blood work. They can help their clients that way. So I'm not sure exactly what you've been denied, but Peter could answer it.
And he will. Thank you. So we spoke quite a lot on Saturday about this. I don't believe it's the government's right to tell us what we can and cannot do if we're not harming other people and not putting other people to disadvantage. So when it comes down to it, if I want to smoke marijuana, or I want to take heroin, or I want to drink raw milk, then if it's not harming anyone else and I've got free mind, then I should be allowed to do that. Whether that everything should be on the medical services, that's a difficult matter. I think we all recognise that we have a finite amount of money to spend on health, and both parties are committed to taking $2 billion out of health each year by taking away MSP as a cheap tax gimmick. When it comes down to it, we need to look at things that work. So there are some things that work and some things that don't work. So there's plenty of conventional medicine that doesn't work. So there are plenty of things that don't work in conventional medicine. And it's ridiculous that we're still doing operations that we know don't work. Equally, the medicines, there's a lot of medicines that people are given that really they shouldn't be given. There are things that should be available on MSP, like dental. We should be getting basic dental care, and that's not available, and that affects people's. And yet, blood tests recorded as by alternative practitioners, that's not available on MSP. People have to pay for those tests. So there's a lot of things that can and cannot be done, and there should be someone taking responsibility. That should be government taking responsibility on your behalf to decide what we should get on MSP. But basically, everyone should be able to do anything they want if it isn't going to harm anyone else. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Colleen, please.
I would like to invite Peter to read the NDP platform on health. We're not taking $2 billion out of the health care system. I've told Peter that before. We are going to cut MSP by half in our first year, and within our first term, roll it into a fair tax base. Currently is considered an unfair, regressive tax, So if you make $40,000 or $60,000 a year, you pay the same MSP premium as somebody who makes $400,000 a year. And that's not fair. So what they do in other provinces is we're not reinventing the wheel here. We are going to put together a task force and to find out how we can do it fairly, and it will be rolled into our fair tax base. But we will ensure that low income and medium income families are not paying more than they already are. We also have a plan which is a multidisciplinary approach, and Peter's heard this before, and I know he endorses it, and I didn't know there was a doctors union. I'm not sitting here saying, well, we're going to ask the doctors union. We've done a lot of work on this already, and we have consulted very broadly, and we have a lot of support from the HEU and Doctors of BC and and BC medical students and medical faculty on our plan, and our plan works in other jurisdictions. It's not just a pilot project, it's a project that works, a multidisciplinary approach to healthcare, which is nurses, nurse practitioners, other healthcare providers working together in urgent care, which relieves doctors so that they can take care of the more critical cases. Often when you need to see a health practitioner, you don't need to see a doctor, you need to get your prescription refilled, or you have an earache or a sore throat. Nurse practitioners take care of that. They can fill out prescriptions in other jurisdictions. We're going to fund that, and it's more cost effective. And actually, new doctors that are graduating from university are interested in going on salary. So we will have urgent care centers, and we will focus, once again, on rural BC, so that you get the health care you need when you need it, it's responsive, and it's appropriate. To wait for so long because you need to see your doctor to get a prescription filled is a waste of a doctor's time. So we have a plan, and we are not sucking $2 billion out of it. It's more affordable, it's more responsive, and we have a plan, and it works.
Here, here.
Thank you. Now Peter will respond.
So, thank you. I have read the NDP's proposal. I just don't think it's brave enough. I don't think it's ambitious enough.
But it's a good start.
There's no, it still feels like a sticking plaster. You talk about working together. This is something I've been doing for the last 30 years. I worked in New Zealand, set up a walking clinic. I worked in the UK to set up a out-of-hours centre that had all professionals working together, and it worked in an integrated way, and it worked cheaper. Here in Canada, I've worked with the Indian Band, and we now have an integrated healthcare system there, and we're looking to bring the other Indian bands together, and that works out cheaper again, and that's open to all the community, not just the Indian bands. So this is something I know about, I feel strongly about, but I think we could do it a lot better than what you're suggesting.
Thank you. All right, the final question of the night, please.
Thank you. My name is Deb Clockenbrink, and I'm a teacher here in the Boundary. And first of all, I'd like to thank you all for running and being part of our democratic process. It's very important. My question is for Ms. Larson. The teacher's contract comes up again in 2019. If your party is elected to govern again, what issues do you see as important to bargain in good faith, as the Supreme Court of Canada said you should do, with the teachers in 2 years' time?
So I know that what's on the table right now is fulfilling all of the previous obligations from the Supreme Court, and that is being done right now. It's hard to comment on what the negotiation is going to be 2 years from now without knowing what the teachers are going to be asking for 2 years from now.
But it's good faith, and what will the government be asking?
Please don't interrupt.
I would assume that we would certainly negotiate in good faith as we did 5 or 4 years ago with the longer contract that you have right now. And I know there was a lot of work put into that, both from the teachers and from the government and the union, to come up with a solution that has given us the longest contract ever in education. I am assuming we would sit at the table with you and do the same thing again. I don't know what's going to be on the table, but I am assuming that we will sit there nose to nose and do it right.
Thank you. That will end the questions from the floor. We will now move on to the media questions. Please, come up.
Hi there. Thank you all again for taking the time to answer questions this evening. Am I loud enough now?
No, not quite.
Not quite. Okay, how about that?
There it is.
So earlier this year and last year, there was a highly publicized fight to keep a school open in Osoyoos. And obviously in rural ridings, we're looking at a lot of rural schools with low enrollment and rising education costs. My question is to Colleen, if elected, what would you do to fight for rural schools in our area?
Well, I've lived in rural communities, very remote rural communities my entire adult life, and my children were raised in rural communities and went to rural schools. Rural schools are more than just a place of education, they're social hubs for our communities. And today, we are $1,000 per student behind every other province in what we fund our students. Today we have to hire, 6,600 students in order to make the ratio appropriate. BC Liberals have squeezed our schools. They squeezed public education. They've tripled the amount of money they've put to private schools 3 times, triple is 3, over the past 10 years without adding any money, enough money to our schools. I am committed to rural schools. We are going to fully fund our public schools and we're going to put in teachers that are going to help with our children that have special needs. We have an increasing number of children with special needs that are falling through the cracks. When we hear about, we have more students than ever that are getting the highest marks across the country because of their SAT scores. A lot of those students come from private schools where they get more students and more funding. And we are going to cap private schools, and we are going to invest heavily into our public education, put libraries back in schools. We've lost our library in our high school. It's unconscionable to take a library out of a high school. And we're going to support them. John Horgan is so committed to public education. We have one opportunity to educate our children. I know as a parent I took it very seriously. Every day I thought I have one kick at this can, and I'm going to do the best I can. And I was really careful about what school I sent my kids to, and then went to really good public schools in Ontario, not in British Columbia. So we need to do a lot to catch up. And we've been 15 years of Christy Clark choking public schools. It took the Supreme Court 20 minutes to rule in favor of the teachers. And that's why so many teachers today are supporting the NDP.
Thank you. My question is for Dr. Entwistle. One of the things that you've said differentiates you from the other candidates is that you're not attached to a party, and that allows you to better represent constituents in this riding. So my question is, if elected, one of the things that can make parties powerful and achieve change is the fact that they have a push behind them. As an independent, you will not have that. So how do you propose you'll better fight for constituents in our riding?
So I'm really glad that you asked that. It's absolutely true that as a party, you can push for things. But if you look at the voting record of the in the last 2 parliaments, virtually always people vote with their party, and they're whipped to do that. So if you send someone who's a member of a party to represent you in Parliament, they're not going to be representing you. They're going to be following party policy. Party policy is driven by where the majority of people live in BC. It's all about urban. It's completely crazy to send someone who represents a party that you should be sending an individual who's independent, who will actually listen and act for the conscience of the riding. Thank you.
Thank you. That will end the question and answer period at this time.
we will be moving along and we will allow each of the candidates to do their closing remarks. As we did the draw earlier, we'll do a reverse order and we will start off with Peter, please.
So, thank you. Thank you all for being really very patient. We have spoken about many things and topics this evening. And we've agreed, I think, the three of us at times, and differed over many issues, including equity, health particularly, education, and I think basic fairness. You've heard what the politicians and their big money backers are promising you. If you believe the giveaways and the promises that the urban-based parties are offering you, and if you believe that they're good for your community, if you actually believe that, then you should vote for the party that you choose. If, on the other hand, that you believe the role of the MLA is to care about your community, to advocate strongly for the people here, and to take responsibility, then in truth you should vote independent. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter, and good luck on the upcoming election. Now we'll move on to Colleen, please.
Thank you. There have been great questions tonight. The thing that brought me to the NDP over other parties is because it's a party of activists. It's a party of people who are foresters, they're nurses, they're teachers, they're farmers, they're accountants. They're people like you and me. We're not politicians. Most of us are people that have worked hard, understand how decisions are made, and understand what it's like to be betrayed. In terms of following the party line, when I've been with people who are NDP members, who are NDP leaders, who are members of parliament, Alex Adamanenko, our dear friend, Corky Evans, an MLA, they're scrappers. That's what we are, we're scrappers. John Horgan's a scrapper. There's no following the party line. You don't whip activists. Activists push back. That's why I'm here tonight. I agree with Peter. The healthcare system is broken. But Peter alone, without a party, without a caucus, will be sitting alone in the legislature without a team. We 6 times as the NDP asked that corporate money and big union donations get out of politics. And 6 times we were defeated. We wanted to change the playing field. The Liberals created the playing field, and then they carried all the balls. We need to change the playing field. We need to make it fair. We will take immediately all corporate and union donations out of politics. You may have heard on the news that the steelworkers are supporting the NDP. You know who the steelworkers are? They're people like Brody in Local 1423. They're the teachers' union. They're the nurses' unions. They're the people who are working for us. And they know it's a better BC with the NDP because we are the People's Party and we work together. We have early voting, it's happening now. You can vote between now and I can't remember what the dates are, but May 9th is E-Day. It's election day. We need change. We cannot afford, as people, as parents, as grandparents, seniors suffering in care that is underfunded, and they know it's underfunded and they've let it go, seniors who are not being cared for appropriately. We need to do something about that. We need to do something about moms. We need to do something about those adults that need to go back to college and finish their education and put it back in place. I knew about that. I knew that they had taken that tuition away. And I'm not an MLA, I'm just a farmer. I know about this stuff. We can do better. I just appeal to you, can you please help us do better? On May 9th, if not at the early polls, vote for change. Vote for a better BC. Vote for better health care. Vote for public education. Vote for seniors. Vote for our environment. We would never have had Site C Dam. We would have had a more resilient economy with more jobs in rural BC, with alternative energy projects, and we want to do that. We're going to cap hydro rates. We're going to cap ICBC. We're going to unpack the BC Utilities Commission and see what the heck's going on. We're not going to abdicate responsibility and say, oh, there's nothing we could have done about that. Elected officials, of course you could have done something about that. We will not abdicate responsibility. Please, on May 9th, vote for the People's Party. Vote for the NDP. Thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you, Colin Ross. Good luck on the election. Now, Linda Larson, please.
Thank you. Thank you to the Chamber and our moderator. I appreciate that. The BC Liberal government has been able to support new programs and local government initiatives because we have kept our focus on creating jobs and strengthening the economy. The budget surplus that you have all benefited from comes from taxes paid by new people in the workforce in British Columbia. Over 220,000 new jobs in the last 4 years. The money to start eliminating the MSP is coming from those new taxpayers, not by raising your taxes or creating a new tax, but from the new taxpayers. And the NDP and the Greens have promises that they have made that will cost you billions of dollars. They'll require either a reduction in the services that you currently have or new taxes for all of you. Forestry is very important to the BC Liberals. 60,000 people work in the forest industries in BC, and we still rely on the US softwood lumber market for 50% of our exports. And we will continue to negotiate for fair trade as we always have done to protect those jobs. You should be concerned about the NDP's connection to the United States steelworkers, not the BC steelworkers. And that union's president's stand against the softwood lumber deal. We support jobs for our BC steelworkers. Because we've diversified our lumber markets, we now ship to India and China, and will continue to expand those and other overseas markets to support that industry. And only 7% of raw logs are shipped out of the province. Our reliance on all trade to the US has dropped to 53%, while Ontario is still more than 80% reliant on US trade relations. Not a good place to be in these times. The world economy is still fragile, but in BC we've maintained a focus on financial discipline with balanced budgets, low interest rates, and the lowest personal income taxes for middle class in Canada. In 2013, we were 5th among provinces for economic growth. In 2015, we're #1. We've created the most jobs and have the lowest unemployment rate in Canada. And this year, $5.9 billion will go into public education, 40% more than in 2001, 55,000 less students than in 2001. We have diversified our economy and are not reliant on any one single industry. We have experienced tremendous growth in technology and have invested more in healthcare, education, and agriculture than ever before. I want BC to continue to lead the Canadian economy, but not at the expense of raising your personal taxes. I want us to live within our operating budget and maintain our excellent credit rating. And I'm asking for your support to continue with that economic success on May the 9th. Thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you, Linda. At this time, I would like to thank all the candidates for coming out here. Dr. Peter Entwistle, Linda Larson for the Liberal Party, and Colin Ross for the NDP. I would like to thank you all for doing such a fantastic job pushing these candidates so we can find the very best one in the upcoming election. Thank you very much for coming.